It's the end of October and it's time to overwinter. Yay, peppers.
I nurture those peppers in my care.
Yay, welcome back to Pittsburgh Home Garden. Well, today we'll actually be overwintering some peppers. It is another beautiful late October day here in beautiful Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But tonight it is dropping down to about 34 degrees. And honestly, that's a little bit too cold for Pepper Daddy's tolerance. What I need to do is be a good old father and put these babies inside the house. So to make sure that we're all on the same page, let's talk about what overwintering actually is.
Did you know that peppers and eggplants are actually perennials, just like your roses, lavender, and yard hostas? Originating in the most tropical parts of the world, these plants are used to year-round hot weather, so your peppers and eggplants can actually live up to 5 or 6 years, barring any disease, of course. But unlike your hostas that can survive underground during the cold months, your peppers need overwintered, which is the process of protecting your dormant plant so that it grows again in the spring, allowing you to receive an earlier and a more fruitful overall harvest because the plant is already mature.
All right, so to get started on overwintering your peppers and eggplants, first thing you want to do is grab a shovel, of course, and grab some tape and a marker. If you're someone like me who has up to 12 to 15 plants that he plans on overwintering, you're definitely going to have to label. But when you are working on your peppers and getting them out of the ground, you want to make sure that you put your shovel all around the base and try to capture as many roots as possible because you want a nice clean pool. And then once you have your pepper plant out, you want to go ahead and knock as much soil as possible off of the root balls because the soil is a place where, a lot of insect eggs and different pathogens can live and they feed on the roots of the plant. So what you really want to do when you're bringing these inside, like myself, you want to make sure that you eliminate even the possibility of different pests and insects getting inside your home and thus messing with your, dormant peppers. Okay, so I'm going to take this off because the sun is beaming down. One thing that is certainly going to hurt your soul when doing so is thinking that, you might be doing this a little bit more premature than what you should. The peppers, they look healthy. They're still producing fruits like that. But if you're someone like myself who is about to go through a stint of very cold nights, all that does for your plant is just introduce more disease. It makes your plant a bit more susceptible to disease. So even though I have a few plants in the yard that are still producing, beautiful fruits, I certainly want to just be safe and take these babies inside. I know it's the end of the season. I have more than enough peppers than I know what to do with, but I do really want to be safe. Plus, it is about that time of the year to where I need to get out here and start re-amending the soil and get ready for all the planting that I'm going to be doing within the following weeks. Please subscribe for that because we have a good amount of fall planting that is going to happen, and we're really just going to be preparing for next spring, which feels bittersweet to say. So now that you have collected all of the plants that you would like to overwinter in your yard, what you're going to do is take your labeled plant and you are going to strip this baby down to its bare nubs. You're going to take off all the foliage, and then you are going to have to make some decisions for the future of this plant, because depending on what stem that you decide to keep on, basically determines how this plant will grow next year. So for this plant right here, as you can see, there's a lot of internal congestion that happened within this plant. So I know for sure that some of those inner stems, I'm just going to take all the way off just because next year I don't want this plant to exactly grow this way. I think there could be a lot more airflow. You're essentially playing scientist/arbiter at this point because you really get to design how your babies are going to look. So first things first, take off all the stems, and then we will talk about actual pruning and where on the plant you should be doing your heavy prunes. So now that you got your plant with all of its leaves off, or the majority, you want to go ahead and start making some cutting decisions. Now, when pruning any of the peppers that you're pulling from your yard, you want to go ahead and make sure that you are cutting right above the node, because that is where all of your growth and eventual fruit will be coming from next year. You certainly don't want to cut off any of the nodes, but you do want to make your cuts all around there. Again, for the dormant status of your peppers and eggplants, you basically are going to end up with a thing that just looks like a stick. But I promise they will bounce back next year with a vengeance because they're already mature. As you can see, the bottom of this is almost like a tree stem, and next year it's just going to get thicker and thicker. Okay, so now that you have made all of your arbiter cuts and made all of your professional prunes, you want to go ahead and set up their temporary home. I'm going to be able to use a nice long gardening trowel with some bagged gardening soil that I end up buying, only because you certainly don't want to bring in any of your outside soil that may have insect eggs or different pathogens in the soil. You don't want to introduce that inside of your home. Right now, it is a bit damp. Certainly want to pre-moisten your soil because you don't really want to water these babies immediately when they get in. You are dealing with now essentially a bare root plant that it will survive basically on the most minimal of necessities. It needs very minimal fertilization, very minimal watering. The one thing that you do want to keep up is the temperature. For someone like myself here in Zone 6A, I certainly need to bring these inside because you want your overwintered plants to stay at a temperature of 60 to 55 degrees. You really don't want to dip down lower than that. Also, when you bring them inside of your home, you want to make sure that these nubs are getting about 2 to 3 hours of sunlight at least. I have a nice basement window. They're going to be sitting by. They'll totally be fine. But if not, please get a grow light and just put it on a couple hours because although there is no foliage on here, they still need some sort of sunlight to stay alive. They are dormant, but not dead. You know what I mean? So in that same vein, you want to make sure that your watering habits are very minimal. You want to keep your soil, fairly moist, maybe water about once every 2 weeks if you'd like to do a nice deep water. But once you have all that set, you basically just want to set these babies in here, set the soil to where the soil line was before when they were out in the yard, and, wait about 6-7 months until these babies could get back into the ground. And that's pretty much it. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, I'll be here gardening. And a happy Halloween to you and yours.
I nurture those peppers in my care, in a city where snowflakes fill the air. Oh, Pittsburgh's frost may bite, but in the kitchen's tender light